Hello viewers, Super GT here. Welcome back to Forza Motorsport 7. Wow, it's been a long time, but we finally returned. Now, this was a really good session I had in S-Class, so I'm going to bring you a couple of different races. First off, SRT Viper at Le Mans Bugatti. So yes, it's been quite a while since I've really played this game consistently. Now, this session here was actually very enjoyable. Now, normally you jump in and it can be quite a bit of a mess online, but I found recently, it's actually really not too bad. It's not as bad as you might think, especially if you get to the front, I suppose. Maybe in the mid pack and towards the back of the pack, yeah, you're going to get battered all over the place, and still, there's plenty of contact, but I think it's actually not overall too bad. Now, I made a video recently on Gran Turismo Sport highlighting the things wrong with the game, and even though it's a game I love playing, there are plenty of things wrong with it, and I was thinking of doing a similar thing for Forza, but in this one I was going to highlight maybe the thing, or one of the things that I really do like about it, the beauty of Forza, you could say, and actually it's really just the openness of the game, of the multiplayer. The fact that you can have a really wide range of cars, tune them up into the class you like, and race them. So you'll see, there's a bone shaker at the front of the pack here. So that in itself is quite quirky. You could argue that that's a bad thing in the sense that it's not really a race car at all. And of course you have all these sort of meme cars and all the SUVs, which I'm not really a fan of, if I'm honest. But the fact that you can tune like a wide range of different vehicles. So you've got a couple of Vipers here, but then you've got like the Porsche there, the Lancer up in second. You can really tune up quite a wide range of vehicles, and I think the openness of Forza Motorsport is one of the things that really works in its favour. The fact that you can really you're kind of free and open to choose any kind of vehicle that you like and then bring it to the race and see how you do, whereas a lot of other games are a lot more restrictive, so you can't quite do as much. So it definitely has a strength in that respect, and it's something I do like, and you'll find over the course of these races actually is quite good racing, because I think the PI system, of course it's not perfect, you still get lots of overpowered cars, but when people don't choose the 3 or 4 blatantly overpowered cars, and everyone chooses kind of the next level of cars down, the ones that are still good but not completely overpowered, then you can still get really close racing. So I've gone for the SRT Viper. To be honest, it's been so long that I don't even know which cars are the best anymore. I think, if I recall correctly, it's the Ford GT40 and the Lotus, the big old beefy Lotus that got added as well, in S-Class at least. So there are a couple of cars, and I think is it the 330, the Ferrari 330. A couple of different cars that are mildly overpowered, but on the whole, the PI system is not too bad. It obviously needs improvement in some ways, but I think you can still have really good races on the most part. In this race here, finding myself in second at the end of lap number 2, quite comfortable here, and then we progressed to lap 4. I was actually catching up with the guy in the lead, putting some consistent laps, coming through this hairpin here, and just run a little bit too wide. The power of the car plus the lack of traction on that AstroTurf catching me out, and I had such a gap that I could fortunately keep second, although it got quite close coming into this chicane here. We can see plenty of tyre balls. Now this could be something of the past very soon because of the incoming race regulation system. Now I haven't actually tested it myself, but I have seen footage of it, and that's a promising thing, the fact that you won't be able to blatantly cut corners anymore. And it's just a deterrent really, the fact that if you go wide you will get a penalty, and I'm extending there, to be honest, or actually no, I think that's actually fine, that one. There were some corners where I was just going a tiny bit beyond the limit, so I would be penalised for that under the new system. Now this was a really good race. Mugello, again of course in S-Class, gone for the Celine S7, so this is a very good car. And I think this race really highlights the balance of the cars. Now of course, again, it's not perfect, there are still cars which are blatantly faster than others. Of course, not all cars are going to be equal anyway, but this race really highlights kind of the good side of Forza, and it kind of shows as well that now that the game's been out for quite a long time, I think the worst of the society have gone, basically, and you really got the more hardcore players left, the ones who kind of want to be here. And to be honest, I haven't really had many incidents where people have just been waiting to ram you off. Even though we've been crying out for ghost back markers, which I think would be a very good addition, I haven't really had many incidents recently where people are doing that. They're waiting for a lap just to smash you off. That actually hasn't really happened all that much, or at all. I can't even remember that happening very recently. So the game has improved, I think, in terms of the quality of the online, and I actually, as I say earlier, I really enjoyed this session. As we're going through turn 1, bit of contact, coming up towards turn 2, the left-hander, and off we go, being forced wide onto the gravel, lose a handful of positions, and by a handful I mean about 20, so back down to 14th, plenty of work to do. You can see just how big that group up ahead is. It's about 8 cars thick, so we've got plenty of work to do to try to get our way through that again, finding ourselves in 14th here. As long as we can get well inside the top 10, I'll be happy. Going past this guy, he's kind of backing off there, letting me go. So back into 13th. Just a short version of Mugello here, so we're going to turn right here, back onto the main straight. Quite an unusual final turn this, you go across the entry to the pit lane, and then back onto the main straight. See what the Celine S7 here can do as we get the power and the run beyond the Porsche. So, as I said earlier, the Gran Turismo video I made highlighting quite a lot of things that are wrong with Gran Turismo, and I'm planning to do a similar thing for this game, although I want to get back into the game a little bit more before I really go into depth on what is wrong with the game. And I think finally, I mean, I never did a review on this game. I never reviewed it as such. I just play it, and you can kind of gauge my review of the game by watching the videos, I suppose. But I never did an outright review. I suppose now, a year and a half after it came out, it's a good time to do it, I suppose. So we'll finally get a verdict on it as we fight and hustle for this 10th or top 10 place, which is just ahead of us. Coming through the final turn, go for the wide line in, and a bit of a concertina effect there as the cars all get kind of bunched up at the final turn. We're going to take to the grass, go for the grass route overtake, as there wasn't really much else on there. Up to 9th, I'll take it. As we go into turn 1, late on the brakes, and hitting that apex nicely. There's contact behind. It's not a nice fight, that one, and I'm glad to be away from it. Sometimes that's all you have to do, just really escape these battles. You want to get through these people and get away as quickly as possible before you just get embroiled in the monstrosity of the battle. So thankfully we're away from that fight there. We can focus on trying to catch up with this big group ahead. So another group of 4. So potentially we can climb up to maybe 5th position if we put the laps in here, just gain back on this group. Now something else we could talk about is the new collision system, which I think definitely helps with the closeness of the racing. It makes it feel a little bit artificial in a way. Sometimes you hit someone and they just stay exactly where they were. They're like made out of bricks, their car, and they just simply will not move, which can be a good thing. If you braked way too late by accident and you smack into the back of someone, normally they'll go flying off into the wall or the shadow realm. But now, they kind of just stay there and the race can continue. So it's good in some ways, but it kind of feels fake in another, in the sense that sometimes I think if the collisions were actually really bad, as in if you hit someone they're flying off, it's a bit of a deterrent to be more careful. You should be more careful in that scenario. I think now, because people don't move it at all and you can collide quite easily, actually people are less careful because they know that if you make contact, well, it doesn't matter because the car isn't going to go anywhere. So there's upsides and downsides. I think maybe the collision system is actually a little bit too heavy, but it does produce some closer racing, so there is an upside to it. But that's the main thing I was going to really cover in this video, the fact that the racing these days was a lot closer, and this was only, I did about 5-6 races in this hopper, as the guy ahead makes a big mistake. I did about 5 or 6 races and they're all actually pretty good and pretty close. So it is a sign that the game is improving. It's on the right direction. It's on the right path. It might be a bit slow at times, the development, I think. So the race regulations, they never seem to really give a clear date on it, although the open beta should be in April. But the development seems to be quite slow on it. I know it is very difficult, of course, to get a penalty system which really works absolutely perfectly. I mean, Gran Turismo still doesn't have it right, so I can understand the fact that they want to get it dead right, and it is difficult. So I completely understand why it is taking some time. But then there are other features like ghost back markers. You know, these things which we've been wanting for a long time, but just not really been getting. So up behind the Zagato now, we could finally possibly go for 5th, which is not bad of a recovery, given that we went down to 14th at one point. So coming back to this position here is quite good, and a couple of cars were crashing on the previous lap, or the lap before, so we gained a couple of positions for free almost. Can we possibly gain one more? Coming down towards the final turn, the Zagato's not really driven a bad lap at all, quite faultless, and I've actually gone way too wide. I'm actually going to become vulnerable for my position here, but ultimately it was a really good race. Really enjoyed that one. You know, we had to fight back after getting shoved onto the gravel, but it was a really enjoyable race. Really enjoyed that one. So there we go. There are the results, and again you can see a range of different cars, a lot of German cars in there, a lot of Porsches, but still fairly closely matched on lap time, which is good. You know, that's what you want from the PI system. Okay, so final race of the video. This one's going to be a little bit tougher compared to the Mugello race, as we start 4th in the Corvette. Now this thing is an absolute beast on power, very quick when you can really drive it right, but it is quite a handful, so you really do have to drive within yourself. Make sure you don't do anything silly and over the top. So coming through into the proper turn 1, Brazilian lagging everywhere. I'm actually inside him temporarily. That is kinky. Anyway, through the left kink now, into 3rd. We've got through the pack and literally through a Brazilian. You don't see that every day. Now coming up into the fast sweeping right. So this is the shorter version of Road America, of course. Is it the west version? I think it's the west version. As we come up the hill over the crest, this guy isn't the best on the brakes. As you can see, they go a little bit wide. Should have braked earlier. As we come through then into the right hand kink, commit nice and early to that turn. I'm not really responding as well as I would have liked. So we've got a Lotus in 2nd. What car is that in the front? I think that's the Porsche 718 or 918, 718. He won the previous race in that car. And we've got the Lotus up in 2nd, the Exige, and I think I'm being followed by another Lotus. Going to cover the inside on the way through this carousel turn, not really give any openings on the way out to the person behind, which, yes, it is a Lotus indeed. So it's going to be a really difficult race, and it's going to be especially difficult when you make mistakes like that. The Lotus comes through. The Lotus got a lot of power. You see, actually, I kind of edge him wide there, kind of inadvertently. I would say that this is my kind of first session back in quite a while, and I was actually really rusty. It's actually quite weird because on Gran Turismo I'm using the wheel now, so I'm using the wheel a lot more than I am with the controller. So it's come back to a game that I'm not overtly familiar with recently on the controller that I'm not overtly familiar with. I think it's got a little bit tricky at times, especially when you're in the really close quarter fights. It can be quite tricky on the controller to get your car to be exactly where you want it to not hit people. So that's my racing driver excuse for all the times I hit someone. So you can see there as we fast forward, the queue was building. I was basically the cork in the bottle, and about 18 people wanting to come past. Just form an orderly queue behind me, please, whilst I'll hold everyone up for the next 3 laps. Through the kink, through turn 1, and you see again there, looking behind, oh my god, it's like the freaking post office. There's a massive queue waiting to get to the front, and I'm the old lady who's taken about 10 years to get what I wanted at the front of the queue. So as long as I can stay here for another 3 laps, then I'm okay. And finishing 4th I think would be okay, because we are really on the back foot. Sometimes you just get one of these races where, you know, you chose the wrong car, or you chose a car that isn't the best car, and oh, I'm hungry all of a sudden. And yeah, you choose the wrong car, or not the best car, and well, you're just going to be on the back foot. around Mugello, that race, we chose a good car. And for the most part I was on the front foot, I was attacking, I was overtaking. But here it's a different situation altogether. On the back foot, defending, there's not really much chance of trying to keep up with the Loti, the Lotuses, however you say it. Not much chance of keeping up with them because they are just absolutely rapid in S-Class. Noble M600 around the outside, and to be fair, he's done me for chips. He's absolutely mugged me off there. Good overtake, got to hand it to him. He made the most of the situation. I was covering the inside for the most part, and well, that only leaves one option, which is the outside, obviously, and he went for it. So fair play to him for doing that one. Delatron on the outside, weird contact there, I'm not sure what's going on. But I kind of resumed my 5th position, claimed the apex nicely without getting mullered in the rear end. And we escape in 5th. Can we go about attacking the Noble? Maybe not. But if we drive a nice comfortable line through the rest of the race, we could perhaps capitalise on mistake. Something you've always got to wait out for. People do often make mistakes, although I would say, as I kind of touched on earlier, the quality is a little bit higher now, I think, in the typical lobby. Now that might not be saying much, it really might not be saying much at all. But I think when you get to the front, and particularly in the midfield, I mean, if you just look at the map, going from 2nd to about 10th, it's a fairly close race. Now, maybe from 11th to 20th, yeah, you got all the slower players, okay, and maybe they're not as good or they're just new to the game. But in the most part, if you're semi-talented at the front of the pack or the middle of the pack, you're going to have a fairly close race with someone, and I think these days are actually not too bad. As I said earlier, though, we can easily make quite a long video highlighting all of the issues with the game. The game isn't perfect at all. There's still so many improvements it could make. And if Forza 8 is a thing, we presume that it will be. There's plenty. There's a plethora of possible improvements that it could make. And to be fair, I think like Forza 7 is almost like a test game now. They seem to be testing out a lot of features in this game, which presumably will be added off the bat in Forza 8. So like the race regulation system, the penalties, all that kind of thing, which I'd imagine will be there straight away. As we go for a re-overtake of the Lambo. So I suppose it was the last lap, I might as well just go for it. Didn't quite pay off though. So now, yes, that's right, I'm in 6th place again. I have this magic gravitational force. I'm surprised Isaac Newton didn't work this one out, the force of Sub GT getting drawn towards 6th. It's a special type of gravity, that, but it's definitely an inherent law of nature. There's so much evidence for that because of all my videos. As we cross the line, there we go, in 6th place. Isaac Newton, get your theories right, bro. And well, there we go. Another video on Forza. I do hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed playing it. But that is all for today. Thank you so much for watching as always. Let me know your thoughts on the video. And I'll see you next time. Have a nice day. Goodbye.